Welcome to the Purple Rock Survivor podcast. I am John, my co-host is Andy, and it is time to get hype for our last pre-merge boot of Survivor. Heroes, healers, hustlers, nailed it.
Yes!
Yeah, it only took me like 6 weeks, but finally got the title of the season down. Hey Andy, do you remember when I said Allie winning might turn this into a great season?
I do remember when I said that.
Yeah, well, I concurred. Now it would make it into a really confusing season.
Yes, apparently that's not going to happen. And, yeah, to be fair to me, because that's what I like to do, I said that'd be interesting because it was incredibly unlikely. And, yeah, it wasn't very likely. So, we got stuff happening in an episode, and it was stuff we hated. So is this the episode to finally turn us around on this season?
Towards a positive?
Yes, or frankly, towards anything. Something at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very, like, baseline level with this season, like, neither high nor low. And you know what? This episode just got us to the post-merge, and that's what I've been saying I'm going to use to evaluate this season. I'm glad we're finally going to be there. I'm a little disappointed that we're there with JP instead of Allie, but you know what? Post-merge is about to begin.
Yeah, I'd say, I'm a little less excited because, we lost what may have been my favorite person out there. At the same time, and I think appropriately for this season, I'm not that bummed about it as the way I would be like losing some other things. It's like, even this isn't inspiring a lot of, emotion one way or another. And, I think I might have crystallized why this season isn't really doing it for me. And I think a lot of people are feeling it this way. And some people are floating out ideas or, like theories that, we're just still, down in the dumps from Game Changers. I don't think that's it. We tend to bounce back season to season. We take, you took like 4 months off between the off season. I feel like we were ready for something. I do feel like it's actually this season. And I don't think that's just like kind of a negative opinion from us or even our group. It seems to be the consensus opinion amongst Survivor fans that this season isn't really doing it. And I think, we've talked about how there's not a lot of exciting characters. And I think that's true. But I think more of it is what's happened so far has just been kind of by the book. It's been a little too obvious. And you can see it from, podcasts like this. I mean, I actually haven't listened to other podcasts, not out of any kind of catty, competitiveness, but because the season hasn't inspired me to want to delve more into it. That said, keep listening to us. We enjoy your company. And it's just because, there's barely been any decisions that have been interesting in these first 6 episodes. Like, how many decisions have rated? And I mean, you haven't thought of it this way, so you might not have a number. But, first episode, they were deciding between older ladies. Ooh, how groundbreaking. Now, there was the Chrissy decision of to play or not to play the idol. That was actually interesting, and I tried to make it more interesting than it was. Next episode, they were deciding between Simone and Patrick, but really they weren't. It wasn't a decision at all. It's like, ooh, how groundbreaking. We got the story of, the Asian woman who isn't fitting in. Never seen that before. Then, what's the next decision? The Hustlers lose again? That actually ended up being an interesting decision that they chose Patrick over Lauren, except for the entire episode, we assumed that it wasn't. Until, the last moment, they were like, oh. So that also didn't inspire a lot of interest. Then we have the swap, and the interesting part of that was kind of undone by itself. Because the decision at hand was Devin's. Which way is Devin gonna go? And then he didn't get to vote.
Right.
And then another decision is what's Joe gonna do with the idol? And because Devin doesn't get to vote, it actually didn't matter what Joe did with the idol. The
Indeed.
Protection was going to be there. So, again, nothing interesting. Last week, it was get rid of, this person. That actually should have been an interesting decision. What's Ryan going to do? Except that it was obvious that he was going to vote out Rourke because she was invisible and Chrissy was a featured player. And then this week, they tried to make it look like it was decision. Ryan talked a lot. It didn't feel like a decision at all. Of course, it's Allie. So there's just not been anything for like a podcast where we talk about what would you do in this scenario? What should they have done? In fact, it's usually a bread and butter question. Was this the right decision? And we're not even asking it. I put it in today's breakdown because reasons, but I don't know. So I think that's why nothing new is happening. It's just been very basic.
Well, and the things that you just described are like the college basketball tournament, and everything is just going according to plan. You know, it's going chalk. The winners are expected to win. Maybe there's an upset, but it's like the 5 versus 12 upset where you're like, oh yeah, you know, I could totally have seen that one coming. So it's not all that shocking. But the more important takeaway here, and that I was trying to stress, is that like, you're not going to evaluate the college basketball tournament based on the round of 64. You know, you're going to look back and you're going to remember the Final Four, the Sweet 16, you know, the later games in the tournament. And I'm just not ready to say the season sucks yet. I mean, no one has popped for me, but what I remember specifically in Millennials versus Gen X thinking when I first saw Jay, like, man, this is just some surfer douche. I'm not at all interested in this guy. By the end of the season, I loved that kid. I was totally wrong with him. Sometimes it takes a while for players to actually make some sort of like to impact on you, to actually land with you. And I'm willing to give this season the time because there's not anyone that I actively can't stand besides JP. So, you know, there's still time, and I don't want to be the Debbie Downer that's like, oh, this season sucks. It doesn't suck. It also isn't good yet.
Yeah, no, I desperately don't want to be that. That's why I keep trying to find new things to talk about. But that's my point. There's nothing to talk about. And I think that's the problem, especially for people within the Survivor community. It's what we do. We talk about the show, we analyze it, and there's no reason to analyze anything. We're tripping over ourselves to analyze nothing just to get here. And that's, I think, why it's been down. It doesn't mean that it's going to continue to be down. Although with your Jay example,
yeah, this would be the point where we turned around on that. Yeah.
So, and before that, we're like, maybe it's okay. And yeah, other apps, and that's the thing, like, you know, there's nobody we hate. You know, you hate JP because you always hate a player like JP. In fact, for you, it doesn't take much text. In fact, it's the lack of text for you that doesn't bother. Like, this guy's boring and it grates on me. But more, it's like, I would be happy, I think, at least as, you know, as a podcaster, as somebody in the Survivor community, if I hated some of these people. But it's like, nothing is inspiring much to the point where I think, a lot, you know, people are trying to like, get some hatred out of themselves, you know? We've seen a backlash, from this episode, and this will guide us into actually what happened on it, against like Chrissy and Ryan, and I still don't think they rise to the level of objectable, other than the fact that, you know, they voted out the person that I think who was most popular. Yeah, they're not doing it. There's like, I think we need Joe to save this season or something, you know, one way or the other. Be an exciting this way or be a villain, and I'm not sure he's going to be. He might be. He has the tools. It could happen, as you say. I'm not writing this season off, but if there's a general malaise, I think it's just because we've yet to see anything we haven't seen before. Right.
It's just the kind of like the season is still waking up. You know, it's stretching, it's yawning. Hopefully there's exciting stuff to come. And I think you did mention Joe having some potential. I mean, it's there. He's finding idols. He's very willing to be active. I don't feel like he's quite as charming as someone like Tony. That's okay. I don't need an exact carbon copy of players. I've said that many times. But he could potentially be a good villain. I mean, there's a couple people that I think have a shot at making some impact on me, and we'll discuss them all later. But I mean, there's a few storylines that could pick up and make this season really good. And we're at the point where that could happen.
Yeah. Now, as far as everything's just been very predictable, interestingly, you at least seem like you were fooled by the predictability of this episode. In real time, you seemed like you thought Allie wasn't going home, huh?
I wanted to believe. I had the audacity of hope. Yeah, I mean, I get why, because it made complete sense. I'd said last week in making my prediction, like, yeah, I recognize this makes no sense. I just want Allie to stay. I don't think it would actually happen because it would be just nonsensical. But showing JP was a hell of a red herring, because why would you ever devote precious camera time to that guy? I can imagine the editor sitting in the booth and being like, yeah, we're really doing this because you see this guy, right? And so, the more we saw of him, I was like, wow, I mean, maybe.
Yeah. And like, to be clear, you weren't the only one. A lot of people, and I think for them, it was a lot of wishful thinking, were like, yes, oh man, JP's going home. And I think what the editors were doing is what they often do. They present two options of who the boot is going to be, and they try to, portray them, equally to some degree. And because there's no reason to otherwise give JP that attention, we're like, this is JP's boot episode. And I think people are on that, to the point where we often make fun of people who arrogantly assume that the editors are putting together a story to fool them and their echic. Mm-hmm. I think this time they were fooling with us. It's like the only way they could actually drum up any level of drama to fill, an hour-long episode. And I shouldn't say any level of drama, because I actually do think the episode did a good job showing each camp and where they are at and the different conflicts of which them. Obviously, two of them get thrown by the wayside to some degree because there's a merge next week. But to the point where we didn't know which tribe was going to lose the challenge, I felt like any one of them could have gone to camp based on the story. So that's what they were doing, is like, yeah, it might not be as straightforward as you think. And then at the end, no, of course, it's exactly what you think. For me, I was never fooled because it had to be Allie, not just for all the reasons I laid out before, but because of everything they were, what Ryan and Chrissy were saying this week. It's like, every sentence felt like it was probably being ended with a, yeah, but, I mean, we're not really going to vote him out. Right.
And I mean, again, it makes total sense that you would vote Allie out. It is the right move, which I guess, now is the time to discuss. Was this the right move? I'll answer it for you. Yes, it was.
It was such the right move that they probably should have, and maybe they did have, throw the challenge to make it happen. Because Ryan had to get rid of Allie. Like, Allie making the merge could have potentially destroyed his entire game. That's how bad he screwed it up. So, like, yeah, they had to be Allie. All of the arguments against JP just felt weak. And not just because it had to be Allie, but oh, he's such a threat. No, he's not. He's not. No. And that's not just me with the benefit of staying at home and seeing how it's going. The things you're saying hasn't really borne true of very many players, if any players at all. Some people were like, well, Mike Holloway went on a challenge. JP is no freaking Mike Holloway, all right? Everything you're saying about it is like, yeah, but we could probably, at most, JP could inconvenience you for a vote. Like, oh, we're going to vote him out tomorrow. No, now it has to be the next day.
Right, exactly. He's not going to go on that kind of streak. And I had the same thought that you did, that if I were playing, I would have thrown that challenge. So it would not shock me in the least if they did throw it. And of course, you would never see that on the show because you would definitely know who the boot was going to be then. Their red herring would have been totally wasted. So yeah, I'm not going to rule out that it's not that far-fetched a theory to suggest that they might have thrown that on purpose.
So the editors tried. In fact, they succeeded to a degree because I saw many people, trying to will it into existence. And in doing so, they really framed this as like Ryan's move, like his decision. They kept going to his thoughts. And that's part of why it never really sold me, because I'm like, I don't really care what Ryan thinks. It's not his decision anymore. Last week, he threw out the idea that he gets to decide the next vote, because what's important is what Chrissy thinks. Because it's going to take Chrissy to throw JP away. The same reason why when you and Emma last week were like, it's JP, it's like, why would Chrissy ever allow that to happen? Mm-hmm. Why do you think they framed it as Ryan's move? Is it just because that way they could sell it to us as a potential? Or does this say something about Ryan's potential future success in the game versus Chrissy's?
No, I think it's the Occam's razor. Go with the easiest solution here. It's Ryan is the only one that would be conceivably willing to flip back towards Allie's side. And, if she was going to get Chrissy to her side, it would have been through Ryan anyway. So to try to make that a possibility, you have to show it from Ryan's perspective, because you probably don't have a lot of footage of Chrissy contemplating it. The decision's going to have to go through Ryan to Chrissy anyway.
Yeah, like there was one confessional of Chrissy talking about the potential of voting out JP. Clearly, it's just from a producer. Hypothetically, if you wanted to vote out JP, why would you do that? Hypothetically, if you were to vote out Ryan, why would you do that? Hypothetically, if you were to give up on this game, why would you do that? Like, I don't think she was seriously considering it for a moment because Chrissy is not a stupid person. Frankly, I don't care if he can win a lot of challenges. I would not be afraid to go against JP in the finale. Like, that guy can just stick around the entire game. We saw his performance at Tribal Council, and as, our commenter Hornacek pointed out, and I was the whole time when I was watching, it's like, this is just an NHL between periods interview. That's all it is. He just said a bunch of words and said nothing. And then Probst was like, JP just said something really interesting there. And I'm like, why would you say that? I actually said that out loud. But yeah, so I think hard. Yeah. So yeah, I think this is just because Ryan was the only one that seemed to seriously be contemplating it. Which I think is kind of weird. Was he also weird? Why was it Allie's job to go talk to Chrissy? I think it's because Ryan was like, well, I don't really believe in keeping you, but sure, go ahead, talk to Chrissy.
Yeah, make your pitch. Ryan, tell me if this works for you. Like, Ryan to me feels like a lesser version of Sarah last season, and that he's doing fine, but I'm not really interested in it. I think he's actually not as good of a player as she is, but he's at least slightly more dynamic when giving confessionals than she is. So there's some trade-off there, but he feels like, dollar store Sarah.
Hey, maybe in the sense that this person is doing well, but it's not entertaining me. Absolutely. But I think even by this point, Sarah wasn't much of anything other than seeing her lay some inroads for future alliance with Troy. That was mostly due because the fact she wasn't going to Tribal Council a lot. I guess also at this point we saw her bond with Zeke. But just in general, I think Sarah at least had impressed me a couple times. Ryan, the only thing impressive that Ryan's done so far for me was forming that first bond with Devin.
Yep.
Other than that, so much of this story of this middle part of the season and potentially for the entire season is tied to this one small, seemingly insignificant moment of Ryan finding that envelope at the beginning. That could turn around the entire season. And if that's the case, future Survivor players, forget all of the perishable food, forget all the items, you find that thing, that stupid advantage. Because, it's the only reason why Chrissy and Ryan are in power is because of that. Chrissy gets to act like she's, this big game player. And I want to say, she could be. We don't know how it was going to turn out for her with the heroes. We don't know how it's going to turn out in the future. But basically, she was able to, through the luck of the swap, get somebody who is incredibly easily pliable from her old tribe. And somebody who wanted to work with her because of this, twist gimmick. And if she hadn't had those things, we don't know how well she would have done. Maybe well, maybe not. But I can't even praise her or Ryan for doing well. It's just because they had this instant bond formed because the game decided to do a thing. And because Ryan was still on the boat when it was there. And because Chrissy lost or Chrissy's tribe, I should say, lost the first challenge. All of those things had to coalesce to completely dominate the past 2 episodes.
However, credit to them for making the best situation possible out of those things happening.
I don't know if that's true, though. I don't know if Ryan made the best possible decision. The question, was this the right move? Yeah, because of how he screwed up last week.
Right. He's trapped. He's backed himself into the corner of having to do this.
But, I don't know if throwing Allie overboard and throwing his entire lot with Chrissy is the right move for him. And I don't know why he knows. Now, to be fair to him, he's there. So he might have more data points, a better, feeling about Chrissy and that sort of thing. But, he now is just hoping that, the heroes tribe, is good to him, I guess? I don't know. I'm not sure this is the right move, but it's been given him power at this point. It's the way how he and Chrissy get to have all the power, despite the fact that Ryan might be the reason he keeps going to Tribal Council. But I guess because, at the end of this, he got his way. And he did what he needed to do. He got rid of the person that could have destroyed his game. it was successful. What he wanted to do was successful. And I still came out of the episode thinking, man, Ryan screwed everything up. And I think it's because they showed him dithering about JP for no reason other than, for us. But it also seemed like he started gaslighting Allie about it. If they hadn't lost that challenge, that could have been a problem. And for two, when they came back from Tribal Council, the first moment of the episode, that was an incredibly bad look for Ryan.
And yet, his confessional tried to claim that it was an incredibly bad look for Allie.
Yeah, and I mean, I suppose it's bad in the sense that she didn't just immediately be like, good game, guys. She showed some emotion about it. But her entire point was, why didn't you just tell me, dude? Which was our entire point about it, by the way.
Yeah, she didn't seem like irrational or unreasonable about it. She was like, listen, maybe I would have been down for that. Just say something. Like, you didn't even approach me about considering it. You just made some assumption about my motivations and my alliances, and you acted without me.
Yeah, and it hurt her. So yeah, she was lashing out a bit, but nowhere to the degree that we've seen in the past. Not even to the degree that like Natalie Anderson did, who, famously was able to otherwise hold that stuff in and slowly enact her revenge. But when she got back, she was like, what the F, Missy, and all of that, right? Mm-hmm. Her point was just like, you didn't tell me. You just completely sold me out, which is a good point. And yeah, he had no defense for that. So at the end, it's like, even though he's succeeding, I kind of think he sucks. At Survivor.
The thing is, I think he sucks in ways that he can learn from and still adjust in the coming weeks. He's not like, at least he corrected this mistake. He got rid of the body. He got Allie out of the game.
But do you think he knows what the mistake is?
That's my concern, is that, and this is what was so revealing about that argument. I don't know that he totally views what he did with Allie as a mistake. I think he's clearly committed to Chrissy going forward. He's gone 100% into that. But unless he was just, I don't know that there was any sincerity to his remorse when he was talking to Allie about it, oh, I'm really sorry and we can patch this up and be together. I don't know. I don't know that he's really seen that this is something he needs to correct in his game in the next few weeks.
Yeah, and it's even going back to last week, and he was all like, no matter what decision I make, somebody's going to be pissed off. And our point was like, well, no, actually, there's a way of making a decision that nobody be pissed off. And frankly, even if you made this decision, because we supported the decision of voting out Rourke, there's ways you can do it that somebody wouldn't be pissed off. And in his mind, no, it's just he made a hard choice, and there was going to be consequences, and hopefully he'd have time to deal with those consequences. And, he was kind of lucky, because this is the first time we've gone 3-3 merge. This episode very easily could have been swapped to 2, and he wouldn't have had an opportunity, or might not have had an opportunity, to get rid of Allie. And that would have submarined everything. All because he's just well, I can't tell her. She's clearly close to Rourke. So the only way I can do things is blindside. I don't know. It's just, I'm, despite him succeeding in every way, I left this episode with a lower opinion of Ryan than I had going in, which was not that high to begin with. And I think also the JP dithering, which this might not be fair to him. He might also be going through the hypotheticals that they want. But it seemed like he was the things he would list, I'm no. It's oh, he's a huge threat. We might need to get him out now. No, you got lots of time, dude. You don't need to get him out now.
Yeah, I'm not going to put too much, I'm not putting too much stock in that. That feels very much like the producers trying to get him to talk about JP because they needed another potential target.
Maybe. It felt like a little more sincere from him then, which is why the point where we're saying they went to him more than they went to Chrissy. He seemed like he was seriously considering it. And I suppose you should always consider everything and then, think to yourself, but nah. But it's if you think JP is a real threat, I guess also just when he was, running JP down, I was kind of I don't know. That was a bit of a put off for me, even though I don't think highly of JP. But it's look at this guy talking about his dates. Maybe it's just because Ryan can't relate to that at all. Because as he has told us many times, he's never had one. This is this guy, he doesn't understand the social game of Survivor. So, well, actually, sitting around talking to people and making them like you is the social game of Survivor.
Indeed. And you know what we missed out that would have at least changed some of my opinion about this season, or at least one person in this season. According to Chrissy on Twitter, she said that during that conversation, she was making a joke, what she called a V inappropriate joke about JP bringing wood to the first date. And I was like, oh man, and I see if they'd shown that of Chrissy, I'd have been like, hey, look at this. She's got a sense of humor. I like her a little bit more now. Never made it to the episode.
Yeah, I mean, I quote tweeted that with a Team Chrissy, and yeah, maybe there was a small motivation just to needle people because of my previous stances, but I meant it. Yeah, again, I would have been all in on that too. It's like, yeah, that's perfectly aligned with our sense of humor. It's like dropping a phrasing in real time. So yeah, we missed out on that. And what we're going to miss out on for the rest of the season is Allie, who I think, both of us throughout the season has mentioned her, if not our favorite, one of our favorites. And, I guess the question is why? Because, she had a near complete lack of success. So why did we like her so much?
Yeah. I mean, it's, if you just go by the scoreboard here, I mean, she did have some failures in there. I just thought that she seemed very good at forming bonds with people, especially people that would be considered outsiders. That's a very useful skill in this game. She didn't waste her social capital trying to protect certain people, because those people didn't seem like they would matter that much. Although in hindsight, maybe they did. She just seemed like a very flexible player who didn't come out there with like I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Like she came out there and was like, I'm going to do X. Oh, wait a minute. The winds are shifting. I can't pull that off. I'm going to go with this and then I'll do that later. She seemed like she had an adaptable strategy and the social skills to pull it off.
Yeah, I agree. I actually don't hold what happened against her very much, especially since we both feel like it shouldn't have happened the way it happened. I think she caught a bad break, She got swapped onto a tribe, and the person who she trusted, who she had valid reasons to trust, it wasn't just because they had been on a tribe together, they had actually been working together, they were actually in an alliance together, decided he had a better deal somewhere else, and he blindsided her, and then the numbers fell where they were. But I think what we saw her working with Simone, we saw her working with Lauren, we saw her trying to manage Patrick, and then I think making the correct decision to toss him aside. Even though now it's like, well, wouldn't it be great to have Patrick? Well, I mean, one decision, we don't know then how the swap all works out, but like, that was Lauren's spot, and Lauren didn't help her at all in the swap anyway. Now, it probably does shift a little bit differently because the way they did the swap was, Probst had two different plates, and clearly one was for the ladies to pick and one with the men. So things could have got swapped all around. Butterfly, chaos effect, and all that. But
sure.
Ultimately, I don't think Patrick could have saved her unless he actually ended up on a tribe with her. And if he had, maybe Patrick has voted out instead of Rourke, and she's still in this situation, right? So, but I think she did have the tools, and it's just, Ryan, for reasons that are his own, decided to go a different way. I don't think it was her fault.
Yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible she could have ended up on a tribe with Devin instead, and I feel like Devin wouldn't have turned on her. I think Ryan turned on her specifically because he had this, like, weird little bond with Chrissy, and then that grew something, and quickly formed an alliance that he considered more valuable than his alliance with Allie.
Yeah. And even the thing that, like, Ryan used as his defense, to turn against Allie, you were so close with Rourke. It's like, yeah, I was close with the swing vote, dude. Like, that's not a sin. That should be what our mutual goal was. And I don't know if it was ever discussed that was the mutual goal. And it was like, I get close with the swing vote. You get close with those two. We meet together and, run this show. So, no, I think she she had the potential to be a good player. Was she super dynamic? No, nobody on this season has been. But maybe she would have been if she wasn't the last pre-merge boot. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was at least potential there. Like, I don't know that they're going to, be pulling deep from the casting pool for this season and future returnee seasons. But, if Allie returned, I would not be disappointed.
Also, I don't know if that's true, because part of it is they seem to do a lot of returnee seasons, although maybe Game Changers, has slowed their, desire for that. But, like, I mean, we've gotten questions, who do you think will be, the returnees or whatever? And the simple truth of this always now is anyone. Yep. Sierra Dawn Thomas was a returnee. Anyone. Worlds Apart has had a bunch of returnees. One World has had a bunch, and none of those people are Kim Spradlin. Like, who knows what the capricious whims of the Survivor casting agents are. It's not worth it. But I do think Allie is certainly a person who has a shot. Due to many different reasons. Her being incredibly attractive is another part of it. And also probably a part of the answer to the previous question of why we liked her so much. But I will say, we don't always root for that person. But so whether you believe Ryan's, spiel about, the great threat level presented by JP, we did get it from him. We also got it over at the other beach about the great threat level that Cole possesses. And it made me kind of question, because both times I'm like, really? Is it time that Survivor start redefining what a threat is? Because this season so far, and obviously this is completely edit based for us, but not actually completely. Ryan did decide how these votes go, or Hey and Chrissy. Are the JPs and the Coles of the world really threats? Or should we start, targeting the skinny nerds? Because, David came one challenge away from winning it all. John Cochran has won it all. Spencer has always been close to winning it all. Is JP and Cole really the people they should be targeting as soon as this merge happens? Or should they, players start looking out for, the Ryans of the world?
I'm gonna throw a wild hypothesis out there. I think they've intentionally labeled those people threats so as to put the target off of themselves. I think threat has just become the catch-all word, like blindside. You just refer to anyone you want to vote out as a threat. It's if we still had the color-coded Homeland Security chart, everything is high alert red. Everyone here is a threat. So you just label someone as the threat that you're interested in getting booted.
Well, and again, that works for Ryan, but I feel like Ben was using that same language. And it's just frankly, leave JP in the game. Leave Cole in the game. Cole's only going to hurt himself, as shown in this episode. But I do think, people should, the start of the game, maybe you should look for the nerds. Because, A, they're probably not helping you very much. And B, why is Survivor casting them? Is the question you should be asking yourself. You don't need to ask yourself, why is Survivor casting Cole and JP? It's so they can fill out a pair of boxer shorts. That's their role. What's Ryan's role? It's probably, and especially as you get to know him, and it's not like he's some super quirky guy, although maybe a certain degree, because again, apparently, people are really like him out there for these reasons. But it's probably because he's some kind of, nerdy strategist type. And they seem to do well of late.
I mean, I don't know that you're going to call Michelle a nerdy strategist type. She won. I don't know that you would call Sarah a nerdy strategist type. There are exceptions to this rule.
Actually, so here's the thing about Michelle, and we can talk about this because there's not much else to talk about. Now she's starting to get actually, this will lead into the next question. So let's do that first. This is reader mail because I wanted to talk about things other than, our down feelings of the season. Instead, we got a question that's probably about our down feelings of the season. It's from Guis, and it's, are we now in a new era of Survivor? The Dark Ages ended with the revival starting with Philippines. Did that revival die, and when? And how this relates to Michelle is, I think, she won a season that's leading up to this, and maybe why he's thinking this is the end of this revival. People now are, of course, praising Michelle. And people meaning people elsewhere.
Yeah, I have not seen these people that you refer to.
Oh, they exist. Are you seriously doubting that people are praising Michelle? That world exists?
Oh no, I've seen Survivor Reddit.
Well, there you go. Twitter is another place. And a lot of it is because of a backlash against Probst's backlash. It's the most predictable way of getting internet fans to dislike somebody is for Probst to like them, and the most probably predictable way for them to like him is for Probst to not like them.
I'm so team Probst on this one.
Yeah. But now there's oh, what an amazing social player. If you've ever met Michelle, you totally understand. And my theory about Michelle is there's a Michelle every goddamn season. Every season there's somebody who's just genuinely somewhat likable, pleasant, and what usually happens, 29 out of 30 Survivor seasons, is sometime near the end, the second to last, or last episode, suddenly everybody started talking about what a jury threat that person is and how we gotta get him out, and we're all sitting at home what, really? Them? Instead of this person, who's clearly the real threat, that we get from edit, the Michelle is usually just voted out at this time. And that Michelle was supposed to be voted out at that time good on her, she won some immunity. So no, she's not the goddess of social play. She's just the pleasantly likable person that eventually a jury will vote for, and most juries never get that opportunity that one happened to.
Since you mentioned Philippines, Michelle is basically Carter from Philippines, who just made it to the final 3.
Yeah, as an example. And then what happens, and he's a good example of that, is in interviews in the preceding years, all of a sudden we keep hearing, oh, they totally would have won if they made the final jury. Keith would have won, absolutely. And other players like that, and we're like, really, them? Carter is an example. Brett from Samoa is an example. All these people who Sunday probably might have won, or Brett from Millennials versus Gen X. Suddenly there's an episode constructed on what a jury threat this person is. I kind of feel like we got that episode with Lydia for some reason in Guatemala. I still don't believe it. And I don't think anybody's come out saying, oh yeah, Lydia totally would have won that in front of that jury. Unless, of course, she was up against Stephanie, in which case she might have won. So about that, Michelle, and related to Guis's question, is I feel like what's happened is after Cagayan, we got really excited about Tony because we thought that would change. He would be a changing paradigm, and that people would try to play like Tony, and it would be exciting because either they would succeed or fail. Either one would be fun. And I think we got a bit of that. Mike Holloway, who, gets no respect on the internet at all, was an active player. Not Tony, but Tony-esque. And he didn't just win challenges. He tried to protect, Shireen in that one tribal council. He tried to turn people. It's just there was no turning them because turning to save Mike was actually a stupid idea that even those idiots could figure out. But he was doing stuff. In fact, his biggest flaws were him still trying to do stuff. Natalie Anderson at the end did a lot, and it was, pretty awesome for her. But since then, I think what we've gotten is a reaction to Tony. And that everybody saw that and they're like, we're never going to let another hint of a Tony, happen again. All players are just worried about the active player. And that's kind of what we're getting now. It's just anytime somebody steps out a bit, we need to take them out. And it's been and obviously last season was the pinnacle of that. And now this season, what their action is like, nobody do anything. Let's just everybody keep their heads down. There's a script to follow. Let's play Survivor.
Yeah. This question kind of makes me angry because how dare you? There has been some really good seasons and even an all-timer since this so-called nadir. Actually, I guess he didn't specifically say that.
He didn't say it. Somebody else said it that got you angry. Somebody else said it was Worlds Apart that started that, and that's where you're at. You can answer this to say, no, you could say it's post-Cambodia.
No, see, here's the problem. Millennials versus Gen X was good.
Yeah.
Ko-Rong was fine. Game Changers was not so good. But it's somehow, just because Game Changers wasn't good and the start of this season has been mediocre, people are acting like, oh, now this show this sucks. They've lost their fastball. How are you at a low point just because you're not at the apex anymore? We went through 4 seasons of nightmarish garbage with this show and it rebounded with Philippines. That was the indisputable nadir for the show, was the seasons preceding Philippines. And the only weak seasons we've really had lately, San Juan del Sur, Worlds Apart, and Game Changers. And
Ko-Rong. Ko-Rong is not good. I'm tired of people suggesting it was. It was 3 people getting removed, a bunch of people who we thought were good at the game that wasn't, and apparently an entire season where nobody interesting could have ever won, because that's what people are saying to me now. Doesn't matter what Aubrey did, she was always destined to lose. Then that means it sucked.
So Ko-Rong wasn't good, it was just fine. That's what I'm saying, is Game Changers, San Juan, and Worlds Apart were bad. There's a difference between bad and fine. I would take fine. It's not ideal, but you can sprinkle in a fine season every now and then.
See, it's funny being on this side of this because you're kind of doing a me trick. Nobody ever suggested this is the worst time ever for Survivor. And you're like, how are we at the worst time? It's just saying that, Renaissance peak that we had, are we still in it? And I think it's pretty clear, no.
It depends how far away you have to get from Cambodia before you can say that the Renaissance is over.
And for me, it's, if you want to define kind of the area, because even Cambodia, great season, in my top 10. Jeremy's key to victory was maintaining kind of a level base, which I think is a good strategy. I mean, obviously it won. And I think that's what people are now gearing their games towards, is a Jeremy type game. And that's less interesting than gearing your game towards a Tony. And you see it even in the fan community where, you know, for years, it was just so much fun to make fun of big moves. And it's like, it's become, you know, a cast of people and a fandom of people who actively root against interesting things of happening in Survivor. And last season, and maybe the beginning of this season, might be what happens when that's the prevailing attitude of, you know what? Tony was still wrong. Yeah, it was so much fun. Everybody loves Tony in retrospect that, you know, nobody was on his side, or our side as it was happening. But at the same time, no. The way to play is to be like Adam, is to be like Michelle. And if that's the way that people think is the way to play, it's not going to be that interesting a show.
That's true. That would be, that's so depressing, a thought to see people trying to pattern their games after those two.
And I agree, Millennials versus Gen X was a good season. I think I have it, if not in my top 10, right near it. But, you know, where it fits in is, at the end, it had like the least inspiring possible, final three out of like all the combinations of the post-merge. Yep. Or one of the least, I suppose, you know. Yeah, Will, Sunday, Brett is also, you know, something could be a little less interesting, although if Brett was in there, he'd probably been a more interesting player throughout. But still, by and large, it was good game. But the legacy ends up being like, no. It was just totally designed to throw us off, and actually Adam was a genius. And so, yeah, where did it end? You could say Cambodia, but I think even Cambodia was a bit of a reaction. Maybe it was, you know, a reaction to, you know, the bigger moves of the seasons before that, because smart players like Jeremy was like, let's cool it with this big moves type stuff.
Yeah, I tend to disagree. I mean, I think this is just a blip on the radar. I'm very excited for next season of Millennials versus Millennials, and we'll see how that turns out. Like, there's potential there. Who knows? Maybe the kids have got something new up their sleeves.
I mean, there's always potential in a new season of Survivor. It's a tabula rasa. It starts. And once it becomes good again, if this season becomes good again, then we'll be like, oh, cool, we're on an upswing. But I don't think that people are being pissy by suggesting that this is a bit of a lull period. Does it mean that Survivor is doomed forever? Does it mean because those damn Survivor producers can't help but interfering in what would otherwise be a great show? Nah, just sometimes things coalesce in a certain way that makes it a little less interesting. Sometimes casts aren't as very good, and it just happens. I mean, they had a half of good cast last season, and it somehow all coalesced in the one way that wouldn't be interesting.
Yeah.
But I just do worry, like, cause last season, what's the first thing they do? They get rid of Sierra because she's just too dangerous. Why is this 90-pound, and I might be generous with the 90 pounds, woman so dangerous? Because she wants to do stuff. And that just seemed like the attitude throughout last season. And then this season isn't so much, let's attack the person who wants to do stuff, because nobody wants to do stuff is the problem this season.
Yeah, and then the other thing is last season, I think Sandra managed to get by for longer because people didn't think of Sandra as someone that wanted to do stuff until they realized, like, oh my God, Sandra really wants to do stuff. We need to get rid of her. So, you know, she at least lasted a few more episodes than someone like Tony, who was much more overtly trying to do stuff.
Yeah. So my answer might be, if you're wondering why this is a lull that you don't think is a lull, it's your fault. Fans, it's your fault, listeners. It's your fault, Survivor community. This is what you get when you haughtily, comment at how stupid casuals are for wanting big moves.
This is a great take. I'm very on board any take that blames Reddit for Survivor.
I'm not just blaming Reddit. I'm burning it all down. PRP, Twitter, all of it. I don't want to hear any more, this stupid person only wants big moves stuff. You want the big moves. You need the big moves. And this is what happens when there's no big moves.
You can't handle the lack of big moves.
Exactly. Just because Probe says it doesn't mean you have to automatically reject it. He's not your dad.
Well, you don't know that for sure.
All right. So speaking of how great a season this is, we should also do our themed to the season gimmick.
Oh, sure. Let's do that. Of course, we like to pick a heroic, healing, and hustling moment each week. What do you want to start with this week?
I always just want to do it in order, so let's go with heroic.
Okay. I'll lead us off here because, my answer involves you, because my hero this week was Joe, who made you look like a genius for predicting that he'd already found the idol and that we'd see it happen here. Look at that. He came through for you. He's our hero.
And it sounds like I was not just right that he would find it, but that it was 4 days after they got there, which was last week. So, yeah, I figured out how this show works. Because it just didn't make any sense. So why a player like Joe wouldn't have found it. Like Joe specifically. And not because I think he's any kind of genius idol finder. We actually had evidence that he struggled with it. But it's that you didn't need to be a genius. You just needed to be motivated. And clearly he's a motivated person to do that sort of thing. And thus we saw it. So yeah. My heroic moment of the week goes to, John Kirkhover's, challenge team for designing a new challenge that seemed kind of fun. The immunity challenge was something new and it was kind of fun.
I dug the balance one. That was good.
Now, a potential flaw with it, as we kind of discussed earlier, I don't know if you could design a challenge that makes throwing it easier. All one person has to do be like, oh no, I toppled over the block.
I sneezed. Oh, damn.
I mean, ultimately, the biggest potential flaw is if two teams are trying to throw it, which we kind of got in China, at which point somebody's like, fine.
I guess I'll win.
Yeah. But yeah, because it really does, it doesn't take much to screw it up. Congratulations to the red team for figuring out the hack. But once they started doing it, I'm like, man, that's so easy. Why is nobody else doing that?
Yep.
Now, to be fair, like a team like the yellow can't do it because Ryan's one of the people holding the ropes. Which I want to, like, if people again, oh, Ryan's had the misfortune of being on the losing side. No. Ryan is a reason his team is losing. And we don't get that story. We're not getting the, helpless loser sucks at challenges Ryan that we usually get. Even though, like, when JP, to Ryan's credit, literally carried him. But even that was they tried to frame it as heroic with the music swells and all that. But yeah, in one challenge, and I brought this up before, Devin did everything and Ryan just had to hold on to something and not drown. Like he hasn't done a puzzle for as much as I've known. It was like Allie and Simone and Allie and somebody else. So he's not like, he's a puzzler, even though everybody just likes to say, oh, the brainy person with glasses must be good at puzzles. Mm-hmm. Like he's not good at challenges. That's why his team is losing. And that might have been why they couldn't have, 3 of us will hold this tight and the other person goes because Ryan is one of 3.
You're underestimating his bellhop strength.
Clearly I am. I think what he's doing is, he's, lowering expectations and he's gonna pounce, to try to get that tip, in the post-merge section.
So you're saying he's lowering expectations in order to fool someone, like he's hustling them.
Yes.
Interesting theory.
Healing moment of the week. What do you got?
I'm going to give this to Lauren, Ben, and Mike for their coming together, bridging 3 initial tribes, and uniting around a bond of hating the youths.
Something we can totally understand.
Exactly. As soon as they were like, oh, they're only 24-year-old kids, I'm like, yep, I hate them too. Let's all bond. I'm in.
I wonder if that's the scene that convinced Survivor, screw it, no more old people.
It could have been, because I don't know if you guys have seen the cast for next season, but no more olds left.
Yeah, I decided I should go legitimate, mostly because I couldn't think of anything else. And, Dr. Mike and Jessica, when Cole fainted, that seemed like an actual healing moment.
Super fortunate for Cole to be fainting around a doctor and an NP. Pretty sweet draw there. Yeah, no, as other people pointed out, it's not like they did anything like amazing. Lay down and eat something, but sure.
Still, it probably required at least somebody with, Jessica's, maybe professional compassion or, hormones for Cole to allow him to eat more, because Lauren could have been like, I don't care if that guy's dying. He's not getting a grain of my rice.
Man, I want that confessional from Lauren now.
So this brings me to my hustle moment of the week, and that's Lauren and Ben that used, Cole's, very human, fainting moment as a reason to rally against him, is why we gotta vote this guy out. Cole, showing that weakness robbed them for a second of, we gotta get rid of a big threat, and instead is like, this guy's just gonna be a big drain on us, we gotta get rid of him. Way to hustle. Never lose an opportunity to demean somebody else.
I love it. I'll give it this, I'm doing 2 awards for the same person this week. This one also goes to Joe for his ability to travel back in time and find that idol. Bravo, Joe. Good job. Excellent.
Yeah, I really think Joe is the key to turning this season around, and I wouldn't have expected that a few episodes ago. Mostly just because I think he's the person that could, like, upset the balance of what has been a pretty straightforward thing so far. And I will also say, you know somebody else who also thinks this season is kind of boring? Joe Mina on Twitter. He is constantly saying, don't worry guys, I know this season, and he's got the 280 characters and he uses them all to talk about how boring the show that he is on is.
Oh man, I might have to start following him.
It's been retweeted into my stream. He's also apparently feuding with Johnny Fairplay, who is somebody who has one of the 20 different survivors who have a podcast this season.
You might have just sold me on getting aboard Team Joe here.
Yeah, that's what we need. Joe, save the season. Do stuff. Be the cog in the something. Ointment is probably not it. That's probably too metaphorical.
Fly in the ointment is the expression, so not so much cog. Cog in the wheel. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, one of those.
Sure.
If he was the cog in the ointment, that would be like a huge game changer.
That would certainly change the ointments game.
All right, so as you say, we still have a merge to go, and everything could be thrown together in an exciting way. And then years from now, we'll be talking about how heroes, hustlers, healers. What was it called again? It was a great season. We loved it. And part of that it'll be all the different configurations of people we have. I thought it'd be worthwhile kind of checking in to figure out where we think people are before the merge.
Well, I think at this point, the Mike, Ben, Lauren thing looks legit. It feels like those three are probably getting pretty close to aligning. I don't really know. Like, is the Cole and Jessica thing still happening? Like, do you feel like that's an ongoing thing?
I think it is in the sense that I'm not sure what her other option is. I mean, Mike, we saw that a bit.
Yeah.
But if Mike's with them, I don't know if she's invited. I will say I'm not 100% sure if that is a real thing. Because what is Mike doing in those situations? He's agreeing. Yeah. What do you do when people ask you about something that's not about getting rid of you? You agree. I think it very legitimately could have been. It felt like, it's like, I don't need this guy around either. But, merge happens. Maybe you do. Maybe, again, it's no longer about the tribe trying to provide for him. It's kind of everybody for their own. So I'm not as convinced about that one.
It helps that they never had to vote, so he didn't have to test any kind of loyalty. He can have been like, guys, I was totally willing to vote with you to vote out Cole, so it can make them feel like he was tight with them.
Yeah, like those three legitimately never voted. Joe, Cole, Jessica, Mike. So, we don't quite, as you say, is Cole and Jessica still a thing? She gave him his rice, which could have just been, a human thing, or it could have been that she's not ready to play this game without Cole yet. I think obviously the rock solid one would be Chrissy and Ryan.
Yep.
And then I think you can pretty easily attach JP to that, because where else? I think JP brings Ashley. I think Ashley and Ryan bring Devin. And then I think also we got enough of Chrissy and Ben. That's probably a real thing. So that's like 6 kind of connected in a bunch of different, if not all together. Oh, a bit of a web anyway. Right.
And then you wonder, like, okay, is Chrissy going to bring in Ben, who then also brings in Mike and Lauren? Or is, it could move a couple different ways. I love that you brought up JP and Ashley, the lesser versions of John and Jacqueline. I almost forgot that was even a thing that existed.
How could you?
Yeah, mostly because I'm very willing to forget that JP is a thing that exists on this season.
Ashley is mildly interesting without JP. Only mildly, but that's, everybody.
Oh, I wonder where Joe and his ally, the Idol, are going to go.
Yeah, so I think then the other configuration we have is Cole, Jessica, Joe, and Desi. I think they'll probably realign at least to, figure out if it's worth staying together. And also because I don't think any of them really have inroads anywhere else. I don't think, I guess Desi did a bit with Ashley and Devin, but I don't think that travels to a larger group because they don't need her anymore. Mm-hmm. So I kind of think those 4 former healers are together. And thus I think the swings now are Lauren and Mike.
Yeah, it's funny to think that Lauren might be a swing vote at this point, but it could be. It sort of depends how these groups break. But I think there's at least a couple trios-ish, sometimes groups of 4, that are going to determine how this next vote goes.
Yeah, so I guess that leads us into predictions. How do we think this next vote goes? Is Cole as doomed as this edit of this episode seemed to suggest?
He's doomed in the sense that I feel like he can't possibly win.
Yep.
But I don't know that he's doomed as in this next vote might be his last. I'm actually going to go for the lesser version of Cole in every single way. JP. I think that, people will pretend he's a threat, and then maybe because we got some JP in this episode, that prevents them from having to show us JP in the next episode, and they can just get rid of him with barely a confessional.
So is this like a real prediction? Like, I've seen how this could go down, and I actually think this is something that could happen? Or is this just you picking the person you want to leave the game?
A little column A, a little column B.
Because again, just like last week, I see no reason why the majority of people would give up on JP right now. I think the majority of people should be aligned with JP. Unless, yeah, and again, we'll just kind of figure out those configurations. I suppose there's a world where Lauren and Mike go with the other 4 to make a 6-6 thing. I don't know if that, I especially don't see that from Lauren. Like, I'm going to rocks to save you people because I like Jessica and Cole so much. So I think you could probably append her as the 7th of that bigger group that I laid out. You might not agree with, obviously. Which then leaves Dr. Mike. I think he could go with the healers, but not with those numbers necessarily. Except that I don't think, like, being the 8th of that other group is that helpful for him. Although I did like the interactions between he and Ben. I actually became a little bit more on board with Ben this episode. In the sense
that was a fun story that we didn't comment on, is the relationship there between Mike and Ben just felt pretty genuine.
Yeah, and we didn't comment on that. And the same reason why, like, the other things that have been fine or even good about this season. What else is to say other than, I like that, you know? And that's kind of my point about this whole season. What commenting in this community and most Survivor communities, the engine that drives it is decisions. There's not been much of those. So yeah, it's like a good move on Ben to socially, work with somebody, and also just nice. I think Ben is a solid dude. Great combo,
I think for me, I like the odd pairings, this felt sort of like a Denise and Malcolm type thing, not quite to that extent. I don't know that this
David and Ken.
I don't know that they're going to have that much success. Good luck to them though. It's just the Steven JT is the obvious one too. That kind of a pairing where it's just mismatched groups and they get along, and it's cool to see them working together. I think there is something there.
Yeah. I mean, and again, the ones you mentioned, we also talk about because they get together to vote people out.
Right. Which hasn't had to happen yet. I mean, it's entirely possible that this becomes an actual alliance, but as of right now, it's just buddies.
Yeah. 2 seemingly nice people being nice to each other. And yeah, whether that will matter once the bigger group comes together and Ben has, 3 people he had developed a level of comfort with and actually survived a vote with, is yet to be seen. But yeah, so getting back to my prediction, I do think that the big group will target Cole because this season has been, as I've talked about, predictable. And why should they stop now? Why should they stop, not just do the obvious thing, which is the Survivor Handbook says that once we all get together in the merge, you attack the young guy with pecs. That's what they'll do. You think it's JP. I think JP will be on the side of the numbers for this vote anyway. They go after Cole. Why I think Joe could save the season is if he plays an idol, but I don't know why he'd play it for Cole. Except
because Joe's a wild card.
Yeah. And that side has 2 idols. They have Mike's, which Jessica knows about, and they have Joe's, which nobody knows about, but Joe, I think, will be a willing idol player. Especially once you find 2, maybe you kind of think like, I'll find the next one. Let's use this to control the game. Exactly. But I don't think this is the vote to do it, because I don't think Lauren would be like, yes, I'll throw in with you guys, because she doesn't like Cole. The only way she'd do that is if she also doesn't like the other people. But at some point, she's got to find somebody she likes. Maybe it's Devin. I don't think it's Ryan. But I'm sourpuss. So I do think it's going to be Cole, because also that seems to be what the last few episodes have been telling us, that this dullard is doomed. And I think, also, this season hasn't really been throwing us off with those predictions. Once somebody kind of feels like they're on the way out, they tend to be.
Yeah, I'll miss Cole. He's been a fun presence on this.
Oh yeah, it'd be so much better if it was JP. That was true this week, and that's not how it goes. I think JP could be Troy. You just keep him around. He's nothing. He's fine. He'll help if he's on your team. You'll win a reward and get a meal.
Oh, my God, he's going to go to the Final Five now.
Maybe.
Thanks for jinxing it.
That's the other thing. Everybody's like, well, it had to be JP because he's been so under-edited, whereas Allie's been a star. As though every season of Survivor hasn't had, like, an anonymous person in the post-merge. That's JP. That's Desi. It happens. It isn't always a sign that they're a pre-merge boot. It also isn't always a sign that they're rocked out or that they get, I don't think the rocked out edit actually exists, no matter what people like to say. They haven't created a playbook for editing for something that's happened 3 times.
Oh, now you're just depressing me. So let's, because now all I can think about is JP at the end game. So
you won't notice him for most of the time.
Let's wrap this thing up. You can find our content all over purplerockpodcast.com. You can also find us tweeting at Purple Rock Pod for the show. I'm at Purple Rock John. Andy is at Purple Rock Andy. What else do they need to know, Andy?
If you ever want to send us an email, we do check the account occasionally, purplerockpodcast@gmail.com. Subscribe in the places that you can subscribe to podcasts. And I think it might be theme music this week.
Sweet.
That's what it's like when a woman wants a baby.